What if I told you that the most sophisticated thermodynamic engineering and like mobile software tracking in your city right now isn't coming from some sleek Silicon Valley startup,
Right.
but actually it's coming from a dusty 1964 van just pulling into your neighbor's driveway?
Yeah, it completely shatters our expectations, doesn't it? I mean, we
Yeah.
like to think of local blue-collar trade services as wonderfully nostalgic,
Oh,
just
totally.
straightforward and maybe even a little immune to the whole digital revolution happening everywhere else.
Yeah, but then you actually look under the hood of how these companies operate today, and, well, that handwritten invoice scribbled on a clipboard,
Yeah.
it is completely gone,
Long gone, yeah.
replaced by something incredibly complex. So welcome back, learner. Today we're taking you on another deep dive, and this one promises to connect the gritty physical science of the real world with the invisible, highly sophisticated digital operations running behind the scenes.
Exactly. We are dissecting the hidden complexities of the modern blue-collar trade industry.
And our sources for this are highly specific. We're looking at the public website of a local Oklahoma company called Heart Cells Heat and Air.
They're based out of Kingfisher, right?
Yeah, Kingfisher. But we're pairing the public messaging with something you almost never get to see.
Which is so cool.
Right. It's an internal, privately authored Standard Operating Procedure, or SOP document. And it outlines their custom job signatures inside a field service software called House Call Pro.
It's just a brilliant juxtaposition. You've got the outward public-facing promises being weighed against the rigorous internal operational mechanics required to actually deliver them.
Right. So our mission today is to figure out how this 15-year-old employee-owned business balances extreme local weather engineering and old-school community trust with, these highly sophisticated modern digital workflows.
Because to understand how this business operates, we really have to start with the hostile environment it operates in.
Oh, man. And hostile is absolutely the right word. I mean, the climate in central Oklahoma is a literal thermodynamic battleground.
Yeah, it really is.
Okay, let's unpack this, because reading through the climate data in the source material, I was genuinely intimidated.
It's intense.
Central Oklahoma summers are regularly hitting like 100 to 110 degrees Fahrenheit, but it's not that Arizona dry heat. We're talking about over 80% relative humidity in July and August.
Yeah, and that combination is an absolute nightmare for heating, ventilation, and air conditioning systems.
I can imagine.
What's fascinating here is the dual challenge it presents to the machinery. The equipment isn't just lowering the air temperature, which is what mechanical engineers refer to as the sensible load.
Okay, sensible load. Got it.
Right. But it simultaneously has to physically pull gallons of moisture out of the air.
Wow. Gallons.
Oh yeah, gallons.
Mhm.
And that moisture removal is the latent load.
Okay, I was trying to conceptualize this latent load problem, and I thought of it this way.
Let's hear it.
Trying to use a dry climate like Denver AC system in an Oklahoma summer is like trying to dry off from a shower by wrapping yourself in a towel that's already soaking wet.
That is perfectly put.
You might cool down a fraction, but you are still going to feel incredibly clammy and gross. So why is the moisture removal so scientifically vital to us actually feeling cool?
Well, it is entirely about human biology and the physics of heat transfer. You see, our bodies primarily cool themselves through evaporation. We sweat, the ambient air absorbs that moisture, and the phase change of that liquid evaporating physically pulls heat away from our skin.
Right, the sweat evaporates and takes the heat with it.
Exactly. But if the ambient air is already saturated, like sitting at 80% humidity, your sweat has nowhere to go. It can evaporate.
So you just sit there marinating in a 72-degree room feeling suffocated.
Yes,
Yes.
just totally uncomfortable. To solve it, the system has to operate almost like a giant cold glass of sweet tea sitting on a porch.
Oh, I love that analogy.
You know how condensation forms on the outside of the glass? An air conditioner passes the warm, humid air over an internal evaporator coil that is chilled below the dew point. The moisture in the air condenses onto the metal fins and basically just drains away outside.
Okay, makes sense.
But here is the catch. That process takes time. The air has to move slowly enough over the coil for the water to actually drop out. If a system is just designed to blast cold air really fast, it fails entirely at that latent moisture removal.
And then Oklahoma weather throws the exact opposite curveball just a few months later. The sources note that the ground temperatures can drop drastically in the winter, accompanied by severe ice storms.
Yes, and that rapid drop in temperature can completely decimate a standard heat pump's efficiency. Geographic knowledge of these wild pendulum swings completely trumps generalized national manufacturing standard.
I mean, that makes total sense.
You can have a unit built perfectly on an assembly line in a moderate climate,
Yeah.
but deploying it in Kingfisher requires a local engineer's understanding of how that specific machine will behave when it's encased in a solid block of ice in January,
Right.
and then practically drowning in 80% humidity in August.
So if the climate is that brutal and the margins for error are that thin, you'd think every single contractor in the state would be hyper-focused on precision.
You would think so, yeah.
But according to the sources, there's actually this, what they call an oversizing epidemic going on.
Unfortunately, yes. It's really common. The most catastrophic mistake contractors make in this region is sizing equipment based on a generic square footage rule of thumb.
Let me throw out an analogy to make sure I understand the physics of why that's so bad. Because sizing something too big sounds like it would just, give you more power.
Right, people think bigger is better.
Yeah. But an oversized AC feels like trying to cook a turkey with a blowtorch.
Oh, wow.
Like the outside or the temperature of the house is done instantly, but the inside, the deep humidity is still completely raw.
That is a phenomenal way to visualize it, yes. It's a phenomenon called short cycling.
Great cycling.
Yeah. If a contractor uses a rule of thumb, they install a massive unit, it kicks on, floods the house with freezing air, hits the thermostat's target temperature in about 10 minutes, and completely shuts off.
But because it only ran for 10 minutes, it didn't give the air enough time to pass over the cold coil and condense the moisture.
Precisely. You are left with a house that is freezing cold, but entirely damp.
Clammy.
Very clammy. And this is where it gets dangerous. Over time, that constant indoor moisture feeds mold growth.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, in the ductwork, the drywall, the carpets. Furthermore, starting and stopping a massive industrial compressor every 10 minutes creates incredible mechanical stress. It literally tears the equipment apart prematurely.
Wait, if the rule of thumb causes literal mold and destroys expensive equipment, why in the world do so many contractors still use it? Is it a fundamental misunderstanding of thermodynamics, or is it just pure laziness?
Honestly, it is largely an issue of economics.
Mm-hmm.
Time is money. Using a rule of thumb like guessing you need 1 ton of cooling for every 500 square feet, it takes about 10 seconds.
Right.
You measure the house, make a quick phone call to a supplier,
Right.
and buy the unit. But Hartzell's completely refuses to do this. They mandate a manual J-load calculation for every single system replacement.
The manual J. Yeah, I was reading about this. It sounds less like contracting and more like a high school physics exam.
It really is the gold standard of HVAC engineering. If we connect this to the bigger picture, a manual J doesn't just look at the floor plan. It mathematically calculates the thermal resistance, the R value of the insulation in the walls and the attic.
Okay.
It measures the total square footage of the windows.
And it even factors in which direction those windows face, right?
Yes.
Because, like, a window facing the west afternoon sun absorbs drastically more solar radiation than a north-facing window.
Exactly. It accounts for solar heat gain. It also calculates the infiltration rate, which is how drafty the house is.
Right. All the little leaks.
Yeah, essentially measuring how much unconditioned outside air is leaking through the floorboards and door frames. It synthesizes all of that with local historical weather data to determine the precise British thermal units of energy required to heat and cool that specific structure.
But to your earlier point, doing that level of math takes way longer than a tape measure and a 10-second guess.
Oh, it takes hours. But Hartzell's approach is dictated by heavy credentials. The sources note the owner, Dave Hartzell, brings 45 years of experience, a master HVAC license, and NATE certification.
NATE certification. Let's translate that for the listener, because NATE certified sounds a bit like marketing jargon. Why should a homeowner actually care about that badge?
Think of it as a consumer shield. NATE stands for North American Technician Excellence. It is the difference between a technician guessing what's wrong with your house and a technician proving it with mathematics.
I see.
When you have an owner with a master license and NATE certification, you are essentially mandated by your own expertise to take an engineering-first approach. You simply know too much about the physics to allow your technicians to do it wrong.
Here's where it gets really interesting.
Mhm.
Because if you truly want to conquer the chaotic Oklahoma air, the ultimate manifestation of this engineering mindset isn't just calculating the air perfectly,
Right.
it's bypassing the air entirely. We're talking about geothermal technology.
Yes. This is the leap from standard mechanics to advanced environmental engineering.
The sources outline a fascinating fact. At about 6 to 8 feet underground, the dirt in central Oklahoma holds a steady temperature of roughly 59 to 62 degrees Fahrenheit.
365 days a year.
365 days a year. Whether it's 110 degrees outside or there's a blizzard, that deep dirt stays the same. The ground itself is acting like a massive infinite climate battery.
It is a remarkable thermal mass. Let's look at the thermodynamics of how a geothermal heat pump utilizes this. A conventional air conditioner has to dump the heat from your house into a 100-degree outdoor air mass in August.
Which sounds impossible.
It is thermodynamically difficult. It's like trying to push water uphill. But a geothermal system circulates fluid through a closed loop of pipes buried in the earth.
Okay.
It effortlessly rejects the heat from your house into that cool 60-degree ground.
And then in January, it just reverses the process. When a conventional heat pump is struggling to harvest any ambient heat out of 0-degree air, the geothermal system is extracting heat from that relatively warm 60-degree dirt and bringing it inside.
Yes. The system isn't creating heat by burning fossil fuels, which, inherently wastes energy through exhaust.
Right.
It is simply acting as a transportation system, moving existing heat from the earth into the home using a small compressor. This is why the website claims these systems run at an astonishing 300 to 500% efficiency.
Right. 500%.
Yeah. You put 1 unit of electrical energy into the pump, and you get 4 or 5 units of heat energy moved into the house.
That is wild. But the installation isn't just a matter of digging a trench and tossing a PVC pipe in, right? The sources emphasize that Hartzell's is IGSHPA accredited.
Yes.
That's the International Ground Source Heat Pump Association. Why is that specific engineering so critical for, just a pile of dirt?
Because different soils transfer heat at drastically different rates. Sand, clay, and rocky soil all have unique thermal conductivities.
Oh, I hadn't thought of that.
Yeah, if a contractor just digs and fills, without engineering the loop specifically for the thermal properties of the local soil, the system will eventually fail.
Really? Just completely fail?
Oh, absolutely. It'll dump so much heat into the ground in the summer that the dirt around the pipes will literally bake. It loses its ability to absorb more heat, completely stalling the system.
Wow. That makes the upfront engineering absolutely vital. And speaking of upfront, drilling into the earth makes the initial cost of geothermal significantly higher.
It does.
But the economic shift, when you look at the local utility rebates the sources mention, Oklahoma's rural electric cooperatives are practically throwing money at homeowners to adopt this. Seek Energy members can get up to $2,000 per ton.
Yeah.
And OG&E customers can get up to $1,000 per ton.
It's massive. In residential terms, a typical home might need a 3 to 4 ton system. So you're looking at an immediate $6,000 to $8,000 in rebates.
That's a huge chunk of change.
It offsets the drilling costs, and then you factor in the long-term utility savings of running a system at 500% efficiency.
Yeah.
It is an absolute economic game changer.
And Hartzell's leans heavily into maintaining these earth batteries. They run a spring giveaway for a free year of Geo 360 protection.
Right.
Which is valued at $499. It covers annual tune-ups and loop pressure checks, showing a commitment to the long-term life of the system.
Which brings us to a massive logistical hurdle. How do you actually deliver this level of high-end thermodynamic engineering across multiple counties without something slipping through the cracks?
Right. You can't just be a genius at physics. You have to be exceptional at field operations. And that leads us perfectly to the second source. We uncovered the internal SOP document.
Yeah, this is where it gets really granular.
It's Dave Hartzell's standard operating procedure for House Call Pro custom job signatures, and it was just updated a couple of days ago on April 2, 2026.
This is where we get to peek at the digital nervous system of the business.
Yeah. The SOP outlines exactly how mobile technicians use a tablet app in the field to collect custom signatures from the homeowner. We are talking about authorization to proceed, work completion, and estimate approval.
Right.
But there is a very rigid digital mechanic built into the software. When the office looks at the dispatch board, the collected signatures display in GRA if the job is moving forward at the original quoted price.
Okay.
But if the technician finds an unexpected broken part and alters the price of the job on the tablet, the signature instantly turns ready.
That red indicator is a phenomenal operational failsafe. Think about the communication gap between a technician in a dusty crawl space and a dispatcher in an office 20 miles away.
It's huge.
The ready trigger instantly signals to everyone that the original agreement is legally voided. The technician is literally blocked from proceeding until they explain the new scope of work to the customer and recollect a fresh signature, turning it back to GRAY.
It totally eliminates the whole he said, she said billing disputes. But I have to push back hard on something else I found in this
Oh,
SOP.
okay, it's that.
Because, reading through the legal language, it explicitly says the first signature a customer signs is to waive their 3-day right to cancel before work starts.
Right.
If a state enacts a cooling-off law specifically to protect consumers from high-pressure sales tactics, why is this local company forcing homeowners to waive that right on an iPad in their driveway? Isn't that a massive ethical red flag?
This raises an important question about how abstract consumer law collides with the gritty reality of emergency services. On paper, I agree it sounds aggressive.
It really does.
But let's look at the physiological context. What were the summer temperatures we discussed earlier?
110 degrees with 80% humidity.
Exactly. Imagine it's late July. An elderly couple's air conditioner catastrophically fails at 2:00 p.m. The interior of that house will reach dangerous, life-threatening temperatures within hours.
Right.
That is a genuine medical emergency. They cannot legally or practically wait for a state-mandated 3-day cooling-off period before a technician is allowed to unbox a new compressor and save them.
Oh, wow. I completely missed that angle. The law was written assuming a door-to-door salesman pressuring you to buy a vacuum cleaner, not a family suffering from heat stroke.
Precisely. The waiver is not a trap. It is a legal shield for the business. If Hartzell's executes a complex $4,000 emergency repair instantly, but fails to collect that waiver,
The customer could just cancel it.
yes, the customer technically retains the legal right to cancel the transaction 3 days later. They could refuse to pay, leaving the small business entirely on the hook for the expensive parts and emergency labor they already provided.
Ah.
The digital signature protects the company's liability, which empowers them to provide immediate, life-saving service.
That reframes it entirely. They are using rigid digital software to protect themselves so they can operate with old-school urgency. So what does this all mean when we zoom out?
It's a great question.
On one hand, you have this company writing conditional logic for red and gray fail-safes in mobile apps and, engineering thermodynamic equations for subterranean heat loops. But on the public-facing side, everything about their brand screams simple, handshake, community trust.
The duality is what makes it so resilient. Look at their pricing structure. They are aggressively transparent. $99 for a dispatch, $111 for a diagnostic that actually gets credited toward the repair if you do it within 14 days, and a $229 flat rate tune-up.
And the operations are run by Dave's daughter, Shelby Hartzell, ensuring these commitments happen. They are an employee-owned team. They proudly still drive the original 1964 van as a symbol of their roots.
Yeah.
And they are sponsoring Kingfisher soccer teams, mentoring at the local VOTEC, and supporting the Masons Pancake Breakfast. They even advertise on the Kingfisher News Shops page.
It is the definition of deep community integration. But you can only sustain that local trust if you actually have hyperlocal knowledge to back it up. A great example of this from the forces is their $99 annual water heater maintenance plan.
Yes. They specifically call out Oklahoma's hard water as the reason for this plan.
Hard water is a geographic reality in the region. It contains high concentrations of dissolved minerals, primarily calcium and magnesium.
Okay.
When that water is heated inside a tank, those minerals precipitate out and form a solid, rock-like scale at the bottom of the heater.
Like actual rocks inside the tank.
Basically, yes. And this scale acts as a thermal insulator, forcing the burners to work significantly harder to heat the water through the rock, which eventually destroys the tank prematurely.
And part of their maintenance plan involves checking the anode rod, which is fascinating science in itself.
It's galvanic corrosion at its finest. An anode rod is a piece of sacrificial metal, usually magnesium or aluminum, screwed into the top of the tank.
Sacrificial metal, that sounds so dramatic.
It is. Because of its chemical composition, the corrosive elements in the water attack the rod instead of the steel walls of the tank. The rod essentially sacrifices itself to keep the tank alive.
Wow. A national conglomerate might just let the rod dissolve, let your tank rust out, and sell you a brand new water heater every 6 years.
Exactly.
But this local team uses their understanding of regional water chemistry to descale the tank and replace that sacrificial rod, adding potentially 3 to 5 years to the appliance's life.
And that is the synthesis of everything we've discussed.
Yeah.
The ultimate business lesson here isn't that a company has to choose between old-school community trust and new-school digital efficiency.
No.
The most successful modern trades are weaponizing technology to scale their local trust. The software doesn't replace the handshake. The software ensures the handshake is honored across hundreds of complex jobs.
To you, learner, listening right now, think about this the next time a service van pulls into your driveway. We see the dusty boots, the tool belt, and the truck. But we almost never see the invisible complex web of thermodynamic math, mobile cloud-based SOPs, and soil engineering powering their work.
It absolutely challenges our assumptions about where true innovation lives in our economy.
I want to leave you with a final thought to ponder today. As our homes evolve into interconnected, highly complex machines, and as our weather patterns grow increasingly extreme and unpredictable, will the most successful tech companies of the next decade actually be local, hyper-specialized, blue-collar businesses that have quietly mastered advanced software and engineering?
It's a fascinating thought.
Because looking at how Hartzell's operates behind the scenes, that dusty 1964 van isn't a relic of the past. It might just be the Trojan horse for the future of our infrastructure.